Hello and welcome to a highly unusual How I Paint Things. Now, highly unusual rather than very special because today is my birthday. Yay! I am 33 years old, and if you were ever worried you're going to grow out of this hobby or get too old for it, trust me, I know guys who are twice my age who are still painting these figures, so don't worry about it. Stick around. Keep enjoying yourself. Now, another reason why this is unusual is I'm actually going back to something. You might remember the other day when I did this Napoleonic figure, this French Fusilier, that there was a second fella that I'd based in a brighter white and then sort of put to one side. Now, why I did that is that I've finished them very differently. Now, this guy I'd painted up in the way that I normally would. Base coat, wash, highlights, all that sort of carry on. And he came out looking pretty cool. The other fella, though, when I'd finished this bloke, I put aside all of the colours that I was using for his highlights. So McCragg blue for his jacket, Evil Sun scarlet for the red, and so on. I just kept them to one side. Then this blokey, this shiny boy here, what I did was to work from a much brighter white base coat. And then just used the highlight colours, and that was pretty much it. What I did then was to hit him with an all-over shade of Army Painter Quick Shade Dip Dark Tone. Now I might have used Strong Tone in the future, that might come out a little bit better, but you can see how it's given those really deep recessed shading, same as how non-oil would. But the dip works a little bit differently and tends to avoid higher areas of colour. But it does take 2 days to dry, which is why I'd put him aside. It's also very, very glossy, as you can see. But one of the things we're going to do about that is hit it with a spray varnish. I've got here Munitorum varnish from Games Workshop. This stuff is great. I have not had it go wrong. I've sprayed it in the worst possible conditions. It's been humid. And one day I actually sprayed it while it was raining outside, and it still covered perfectly well. Now I've had a few models with this dip on go a little bit funky when I've hit them with a spray varnish. Army Painter's Anti-Shine Matte, in particular, I tend not to get very good results from it, even though I shake the crap out of it and all that carry on. So I'm going to hit this guy with Munitorum varnish, and we'll come back in a couple of seconds. I'll stop that ringing, and we'll see what we get. Now after that varnish spray, that's what we've got, and I'm actually pretty impressed with that. You can see how it's brought the colours back down a little bit, how I normally use a varnish to sort of blend highlights, make them not look quite as sharp. But, you know, I would quite happily put him on the table, put his grass on, and away we go. But what we can do is also hit him with a couple of highlights just to improve this, make it look even better. So what I'm going to do is exactly the same as I did with the skin on the other fella here, because this guy's a little pale and sort of washed out, whereas he's got a bit more life to him. So what I'll do, I'll just do this quickly off camera, hit him with a little bit of Reichland Flesh Shade, and then I'll do some highlights. Now there we go, there's a little bit of warmth to that skin. Now I've got some white, and I'm going to do just a few highlights along his trousers and on some of his equipment. Unlike the other fella who didn't start from a true white, this guy did. So if I use Ulthuan Grey, it'll look a little bit peculiar. So I'm going to be fairly sparing with this. Just a few spots where I really want those creases to stand out. So let's be careful here. Yeah. See what we come out with after a little bit of this. Now this is starting to look a little more like my usual painting. Quite sharp highlights, which I think are going to look cool on the table. I've got my Steel Legion drab here, and I'm just going to go back over and do a few little highlights just on his Charcot cover, just to brighten up some of that area. Then we'll do just a little bit of Stormhost Silver, just to brighten up his rifle in a few places. Now after just those highlights you've seen on screen and the grass applied to his base, this is what we've got. And side by side, I quite like how he turned out. If I'm honest, if I were going to paint a large number of these Napoleonic infantry, I would probably use the dip. I think this guy looks a little better overall, and if I had the time, I would want to paint an army looking like this. But as far as getting him on the table as quickly as possible, and actually, I think it looks pretty good, the dip, that came out pretty well. That experiment, I think, paid off. In the future, I would probably start him, instead of a pure white like I have done, I'd start him from the Ilthuan Grey, the same as this Fusilier over here, because that slight off-white I still think really suits. But otherwise, hey, I'd call that a successful experiment. So again, just something to show you the difference and some different ways you can tackle certain armies. That dip is pretty good stuff, and the bonus with it being it's almost indestructible. So if you've got any metal figures, like you'll probably have with a lot of these historical armies, it's going to help keep them safe and your paint jobs from chipping in the event anything gets knocked over. So I don't know, guys, it's really up to you. That's more of a style choice. I think if you only had an hour or so of sort of hobby time every couple of days, then getting these guys based up with those quick base coats, a dip, and then leaving them for, 2, 3, even 4 days for it to cure properly, that wouldn't be a big ask. And that time saved will get you on the table with some painted models much faster. Just something to think about. At any rate, since I mentioned it was my birthday, hooray! I want to share with you guys how I got into all of this. I was 10 years old, and my grandfather had noticed I had gotten my hands on one of those plastic airfix kits. It was a Churchill, tank that I'd been working on, and he saw this and thought it was cool. Now, he knew of a store that sold these strange toy soldier things. So he went out and he got me some gift vouchers for, I think it was Mark I when I was a kid, or was it Heroes for Sale? I think it was Mark I. Anyway, see, you can tell I'm getting old. My stories go nowhere fast. But he, I don't think, quite grasped the journey that was going to follow. And that was my 10th birthday, so now 23 years later, here I am still painting these toy soldiers. And it's been a trip. So if you've just gotten started, maybe you got some models for Christmas, or you've had a birthday recently, welcome aboard. And I hope you find the next 20 years as entertaining as I have. So have some fun with these guys, cruise out into the world, find something that you just want to paint, pick it up, have a go. And I guarantee you're going to have a good time. So as ever, guys, thank you very much for sticking around. I know this wasn't really much of a technique video, just something to show off a little bit of difference, and I did promise I would follow up on that second bloke. So any comments, questions, the usual, drop them down there in the old box below. You can get in touch on Twitter or Facebook, and, why not? I'll rattle the old tip jar too. Both my Patreon and the old coffee page are linked down there too. There you go, you can do what you like with that information. But as ever, thank you very much for sticking around, guys. I hope you found something useful. You enjoy the rest of your day, because I certainly am.